Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Goodman, Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana. We're here at 318 Latino Studios for Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home. And we have a super special guest today. It is U.S. Attorney Brandon Brown. Attorney Brown, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for the invite.
Of course.
Very honored, a fan of your podcast and just a fan of everything the YMCA does. So looking forward to our chit chat. No pressure, but yeah. we'll see.
Yeah, this will all be in your wheelhouse.
Absolutely.
All right, so I want to start today with a bit of a civics lesson.
Okay.
On December 10th, 2021, you were sworn in as a U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Louisiana. Mm-hmm. You are one of 94 attorneys who serve as the chief federal law enforcement official in each of the 94 U.S. federal judicial districts. U.S. attorneys must be nominated by the President, that's the President of the United States, and confirmed by the U.S. Senate, after which they serve 4-year terms. So for us lay people, I'm in that group, define, if you could, the role of the U.S. Attorney.
All right. Well, the common citizen, in Louisiana, when they think of prosecutors, when they think of, people that run prosecutive offices or agencies, they think of their local district attorney. Here in Caddo Parish, the local district attorney is James Stewart. In Bossier Parish, the local district attorney is Skylar Marvin, for example. Well, they handle all state prosecutions. Any arrest made by local or state agency is taken to their offices for possible charging and prosecution. Well, we do that on the federal side. On the federal side, you have various federal investigative agencies, and I'll just start with what we do from a criminal standpoint, but there's also a civil component. From a criminal standpoint, the FBI, the ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the IRS, the Health and Human Services, just a various pool of federal investigators bring us cases on a daily basis to either start investigating or they've already investigated and they're ready to present for prosecution federally. So a lot of times we have our federal agents that directly bring us cases. We also have federal agents that partner with state and local law enforcement, what we call task force officers, that are deputized federal agents. For example, we have many deputized federal task force officers that work for the Shreveport Police Department. They work for the Bossier City Police Department. They work for the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office and so on. They partner with FBI agents. They partner with ATF agents to bring us cases that may be a violation of federal criminal law. And we do that not only here in the Shreveport area. This district, the Western District of Louisiana, covers the Monroe area, the Shreveport area, the Alexandria area, the Lafayette area, and also the Lake Charles area, and all points in between, 42 of the 64 parishes in the state.
I believe there are only two federal districts in Louisiana. Is that
three? Three.
Okay.
We're the Western District. There's an area in Baton Rouge. They have a few parishes. That's the Middle District. That U.S. Attorney's Office, that courthouse sits in downtown Baton Rouge. They both sit in downtown Baton Rouge. And then we have the Eastern District, which is the New Orleans area, another small set of parishes, but that's the biggest office because they have the most people in that district. Our district, I called off those cities. You can imagine the towns and villages in between those cities. We're the rural area of the district. Outside of those 5 cities I just named, everything else is pretty rural. So we prosecute all violations of federal law. drugs, narcotics, firearm violations, human trafficking, of course, violations of federal tax law, child exploitation, all kind of things that we prosecute in those areas. And the Eastern and Middle District U.S. attorneys, they lead their offices in those efforts as well. From a civil standpoint,
everything you just named was criminal.
That was criminal prosecution. From a civil standpoint, we also defend the government when the government is sued, and suits are brought in those 5 geographical areas. We're responsible for representing the United States in those civil lawsuits.
So give me an example of
the easiest example I just gave some kids about an hour ago was if you leave out of here and a postal truck hits you, all right, and you're injured, your car is damaged, and you want to bring suit against the United States for personal injury damages and property damages. Well, the United States has to have someone represent its interests. So if that car accident happens in downtown Shreveport, then our office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, our civil division, we have civil defensive AUSAs. They defend the government in the suit that you and your attorney bring against the United States for the postal truck rear-ending you or side-swiping you or T-boning you or whatever. And, we work to either prove that we're not liable, or if we are liable, we'll quickly try to settle the lawsuit. Also in our civil division, we affirmatively bring lawsuits. It may be some kind of civil rights issue. We will affirmatively bring the lawsuit, some kind of disability type discrimination, or some kind of housing issue. We may look that involves federal dollars, HUD cases, for example. If the Medicare, Medicaid program is being defrauded, we will bring, maybe criminal, but also civil cases affirmatively to sue those organizations.
So let's pause there, and I'm gonna skip the question just as you're talking. So I want you to confirm. I'm gonna say a long question, and I want you to confirm if this is an example of what you just described. So gangs are one of the main contributors to our current crime issues in this community.
Absolutely.
In July of this year, your office announced the indictment of 24 individuals associated with the Shreveport Street Gang, Step or Die, or you told me SOD. Talk to me about this indictment. Also, give me, if you could, a little of the lay of the land of the current gang situation in our community. And what I mean by that is how many gangs there are, how close we are to diffusing their impact, etc. So, and just before you start, so is that an example of a civil case? Because the indictment was because of a CARES Act fraud, if I'm not mistaken. Or,
yeah. Let me explain. Okay. So this was all criminal.
This is all criminal. Okay.
It's all criminal. Let me explain what happened. So, Step or Die, SOD, very very popular. A gang that's been giving us some problems, for lack of better words, for quite some time. We've indicted over the years several members that either belong or are closely affiliated with that gang for various reasons: drugs, violations of federal firearm law. Guys that shouldn't have had guns, they had them illegally, or they were stolen, or they had them in conjunction with drugs, or what have you. But this conspiracy, it was more far-reaching, and what we found while we were trying to put together a kind of a global kind of mass case against them, for lack of better words, that a lot of these members took advantage of the COVID-19 pandemic back in 2020, going into 2021, where they decided to conspire with these folk. They were preparing the paperwork to be sent off to get these loans, they got together and decided, hey, we're gonna get some of that money. We think to fund their some of their drug trafficking, to buy firearms, and or just to buy stuff, just to buy cool stuff, just to buy clothing, to buy cars, to go on trips, to go to NFL games, to go to NBA games. And if you ever, anybody that's ever applied for some of that money, you have to allege that, hey, I've got a business and I've got employees, and they couldn't come to work because of the pandemic. Or
these are PPP loans we're talking about.
All right. So these individuals purported and claimed to have certain businesses that they really didn't have. They were faux businesses. That's what I call them. Some of them claimed to have cattle businesses, and they had hair salons. They operated out of their one bedroom apartments, and they sold hair out of their houses. And then when they really didn't, or if they did, it wasn't to the extent where they had all these employees that they had to keep paying during the pandemic, or their revenue fell off and they had to keep paying their. It was fraudulent. So these guys were getting these lump sums of money and just kind of going to town with whatever they wanted, and it was a creative way that the investigators and the AUSA, the Assistant U.S. Attorney, pieced and put that case together. And it was just another tool in our toolkit that we used to try to take a significant piece of a violent crime organization down, and try to hold them accountable for CARES Act fraud. But we hope that they'll also just kind of slow down their activity, maybe even disrupt the gang at the end of the day. So we're looking at some more individuals and organizations that have done the same. As I said in that press conference, we're not finished. We're not finished prosecuting those who took advantage of America at our most vulnerable time. We're not finished. There were some legitimate businesses that had issues, Jeff, during that time, that needed the money, that deserved the money. But these individuals neither deserved or needed that money for what they claimed they needed it for. So we've done some other cases, just sticking with CARES Act fraud. We had a case over in Monroe where the judge said this guy was one of the worst fraudsters he'd ever seen. U.S. v. Michael Tolliver, where Michael Tolliver claimed that he had all these oil field businesses, and he supplied these oil field businesses with supplies, and he had these employees where he defrauded the government out of he got around $1 million. He tried to get $2 million, I believe, and the judge sentenced him to 10 years, the maximum allowed by the statute, and ordered over $1 million of restitution. We got another case over in Minden where a young lady will be sued soon, where she got about $500,000. And we've got some other cases in the hopper, as my grandfather would say, that are on the way, coming down the chute in terms of CARES Act fraud. We got a few more violent crime organizations that we're looking at. If we can't get them on more serious RICO or gun trafficking crimes or drug trafficking crimes or violations of federal firearm law, then if they got CARES Act money, we'll take advantage of our wire fraud statutes and do what we have to do to keep our community safe.
So educate me on the gang situation. So, this SOD, are they one of 50 active organizations affecting our community? Are they one of 100? Are they one? Give me a sense of what exactly the gang situation looks like right now in this community, and how close we are to maybe getting it under control, if that's the correct terminology.
It's hard to put a number on how many we have, because these organizations, Jeffrey, are very, very fluid. This week, we'll be together. We'll be in a little organization or gang or whatever you want to call it, and we'll decide, to go do some stuff that we shouldn't do, and then next year or next week, we'll have gotten into it over a girl or something, or I got disrespected on Instagram, and I go partner up with these people over here, and then the week after that we've kissed and made up, and I'm back, and that's the challenge with that the FBI, Shreveport PD are having with a lot of these gangs, really trying to, I guess, keep in mind or decide, okay, look, is this really a close-knit gang organization, or are they just some kind of loose-knit, Johnny-come-lately type one-off type deal? And so we, there's the racketeering statute that we love. I wish I could bring multiple RICO charges. That's the abbreviation for racketeering. But a lot of times we're left with, okay, if they got a stolen gun, if they're a felon in possession of a firearm, that's a very good tool in our toolkit that we take advantage of. But a lot of these individuals in these street-level gangs are young. They're juveniles. They're 18, 19, 20 years old, and they haven't even been around long enough to get a felony conviction. So a lot of times we try to get creative on how we can bring them into federal court for prosecution, because in terms of federal firearm law, that's our main hook, being a felon in possession. Now, there are some other statutes that we can take if the gun's stolen, if there's some kind of protective order they've had, out there, we used to be able to use that. So we have to get creative, and the CARES Act prosecution was a beautifully, creatively orchestrated investigation by the agents, by Shreveport PD, by Aaron Crawford, our prosecutor here in Shreveport, putting that together, and hopefully we'll get some substantial, worthwhile sentences. The loss amount in federal court, the jail time in white collar cases, this is what a CARES Act fraud case is, a white collar case, essentially, even though it's dealing with violent individuals, it's a white collar case. So the loss amount, the amount stolen, drives the amount of months and years that an individual gets. So they're varying ranges. Some people got $20,000. Some people got $60,000. It just depends. So we'll see how it shakes out. We just indicted the case. A few individuals have pled. I don't think anyone's been sentenced yet, but we're working on it, and at the end of the day, hopefully we can get all 24 of them pled and sentenced in short order.
Well,
and move on to the next one.
I know it was a great achievement, so congratulations.
Oh, no problem.
In August of this year, you announced the appointment of Jason Waltman to serve as a Special Assistant U.S. Attorney, or SAUSA, I think.
Yeah, we call them SAUSAs.
SAUSA,
yeah.
SAUSA.
Yeah.
In the criminal division of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Tell me why this appointment of Jason is important, and how that'll assist in our efforts to reduce crime in this community.
All right, and I somewhat touched on this during the initial part of our conversation. We have a great collaboration, and I say we, not only the U.S. Attorney's Office, but the FBI, the ATF here, and even the DEA here. We have a great relationship with our local partners, Shreveport PD, Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, Bossier Parish Sheriff's Office, Bossier City PD, DeSoto Parish, Sabine Parish,
the DA's office.
The DA's offices, and the local law enforcement agencies. We, on a weekly basis, have meetings with those law enforcement agencies in those cities and those towns and parishes. And I say we, our office, the FBI, ATF, we have what we call task force meetings. And we all get together and decide, okay, look, this group, and over here in Bossier, they're doing X, Y, Z. Okay, who's best to go investigate that. Where can we best push the resources? Maybe Bossier City already, is looking at somebody and they're kind of ahead of what the Bossier Sheriff's Office can do or the FBI can do. So we get together and make sure we're not putting too many resources in one spot. So we make sure we're not, duplicating efforts. So it's the same concept between us and the DA's office. A lot of cases, drug cases, gun cases, we have what we call concurrent jurisdiction. Well, that means James Stewart's office, he could prosecute a felon in possession, for example. Brandon Brown can prosecute a felon in possession, for example. But our collaboration, Mr. Waltman will be able to see a lot of cases as they come into the DA's office and be able to suggest to us, okay, this guy may be better for federal prosecution for many reasons. That could be the case. Or he may say, okay, this is one that we may need to keep over here at Caddo.
And just clarify why would that determination be made? Why would he say, I think Brandon's office is better suited to prosecute this particular case?
Well, it may be we'll stick with the felon in possession angle. A lot of times those individuals, they'll get bonds in state court. They'll get bonds. And if it's a known shooter, if we adopt from the state a felon in possession case, we seriously believe that man, that woman is a problem, is a violent individual, or has the propensity to be a violent individual. Otherwise, we're not taking the case federally. So we don't want him to make bond. And in federal court, it is a little harder to get bond as it is in state court. So that's just one example why. We get calls every week saying, hey, this guy's a shooter. We want to send him over there. We tend to get them prosecuted quicker. We have a lower caseload than the state does. So we can kind of get them through the criminal justice process, get them held without bond all along. And
just to clarify,
taking them off street.
Held, even if you're prosecuting, they may be being held by SPD or being held by Caddo Sheriff.
So the U.S. Marshals, they have a contract here with the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, and the U.S. Marshals, basically, if he's a federal detainee, pretrial detainee, they pay the sheriff's office for housing that inmate at Caddo. Okay. They have a similar contract, an identical contract with the Bossier Sheriff's Office as well. We have one down in Alexandria. We have one over in Monroe. So basically the U.S. Marshal, who's responsible for housing pretrial detainees, this is all over the country. They partner with their local sheriffs and police departments through contracts. Say, hey, can you house these guys for me? And then once they're convicted, they go to a federal Bureau of Prison facility. The closest one here is in Pollock, Louisiana, around Alexandria. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to be held out of Caddo or up at Bossier until they go to trial or plead guilty. So that's one reason why they may come over here. Another reason, they may get a stiffer sentence in federal court because of our sentencing guidelines. So it just kind of depends. A lot of times, we'll go ahead and prosecute the felon in possession while Shreveport PD and the DA's office are trying to put together their murder investigation, because we don't prosecute murders in federal court generally. So unless it's a federal employee on duty or some kind of murder that takes place on federal property, which is rare. But they handle the murders. A lot of times we'll take care of the gun cases. Say, look, you guys go work on your homicide case. While you're working on that, because some of these homicide cases, they may go cold. It may take a year for them to put together. In the meantime, we're working on our federal prosecution, and we can get him held until you decide what you're going to do with your murder case. So those are just 2 examples, but there are others. There are other, law enforcement reasons that, kind of sensitive. I don't want to get into here, but there are a myriad of reasons. And even before I became U.S. Attorney, when I was an assistant in the office, we've always had a great relationship with the DA's office, even back to when Judge Scott was a DA. And we've had a great relationship with the police chiefs here in Shreveport, and we just great collaboration. Our doors are always open to them, and we seem to make it work the best we can. Of course, we're always trying to make some improvements because we still have murders and shootings and whatnot, but we're here to just kind of be a partner with the DA and with Chief Smith, with Sheriff Prater, who, I think we all have beautiful relationships with.
It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. So in addition to the things I've mentioned so far, mm-hmm. can you talk to me about some of your current priorities and initiatives?
Absolutely. We've talked ad nauseum about CARES Act. That's a big priority of the Department of Justice coming out of Washington. We get our direction from Washington. I joke with James Stewart all the time that he's his own boss. He's kind of, I guess he answers to his constituents, his voters. But since I'm an appointed public official by the president, nobody votes for me. But
and your boss is basically, just to clarify, is the U.S. Attorney General. Is that correct?
Yeah, Merrick Garland. I report to Merrick Garland. So, Merrick Garland has developed these priorities during his time in office that is pushed down to the other 94 districts, saying, "Hey, this is what I want you guys focused on. I want you guys, number one, to keep our community safe. Go back home, partner with your locals, and decide how you guys can collaborate to keep your community safe. That may be through robust gun prosecutions. It may be through robust drug prosecutions. Civil rights is also is pretty big on his priority list. When we think of civil rights, a lot of us think of, police brutality, excessive force. Yeah, that is what he means, but he also means us bringing these affirmative suits when people are taking advantage of disabled people. They're taking advantage of the elderly in terms of a lot of elder fraud. A lot of times we partner with the consumer protection. When your grandmother or your aunt gets those robocalls and you're trying to defraud them out of money. Well, some of our districts will partner with consumer protection and try to get our arms around whoever the fraudster over in Africa is, for example. I'm sure you've all heard of how that kind of stuff works. So, violent crime, civil rights, CARES Act at the top of his list. And let me be clear. We put together not only a criminal angle for the CARES Act fraud, as I talked about, we also have a civil angle where some individuals we may decide not to prosecute. We may say, okay, look, you got this small amount of money, you're nonviolent, you got caught up with, some preparer that's prepared 100 folks' paperwork, and you only got $10,000 or whatever. Okay, we're gonna come up with a way. We're gonna sit down and come up with a way for you to pay that money back, whether it takes you a year, 2-3 years. You pay it back, and we won't prosecute you. And that, because we just don't have the resources to prosecute everybody that stole that money. So we came up with a way civilly where we will, try to recoup the money. Maybe we seize your tax refunds for a few years. Maybe you got, an aunt that want to help you out and help pay the money back, whatever it is. So that gives some of the lower loss amount folks a chance to say, hey, this person over here helped me prepare this paperwork. That's all I know about it, but I want to help try to pay this money back. help you guys avoid taking me to prosecution. Of course, I don't want a felony conviction on my record. So if you're gonna let me pay it back over time, or I can give you the money, great. And we're starting to kind of get that off the ground.
And it frees you up to focus on
the
more
people,
serious.
the people that stole the $500,000 and $1 million of CARES Act fraud cases, because those cases take quite some time to put together. So yeah, human trafficking, another area that I think in this district, I'd like to kind of see us improve in that area. I believe that, especially Shreveport, Jeffrey, with the amount of casinos that we have,
the interstates,
with 2 interstates coming right through our area, I think we're probably missing the ball on some human trafficking issues that we have. Not only children, but forced labor situations. By forced labor, I mean, I own a restaurant, and I've got these illegals, working in my restaurant, paying them pennies. All right, and somebody's brought them to me to work. I mean, that is illegal. That's forced labor. You're forcing them to get paid $2 an hour because you want to pay them $2 an hour instead of what they deserve. So we've seen a few of those cases. They are harder to put together. But the human trafficking cases are another area of priority for the department. So it's and we plan to do some outreach over the next year or so, because I think the one issue we have, we don't know human trafficking when we see it, and I used to be guilty of this. Maybe I walk in a convenience store, and an experienced law enforcement officer may see an individual, for example, with 2 kids, and he sees some kind of signs that the kids might not want to be with this guy, or there's just something that maybe a law enforcement officer may realize that common layperson Joe Blow like Brandon Brown may not be able to realize in that situation. So I've talked with my staff recently about, hey, we got to do some outreach and get information out to the community. Look, here are the warning signs, human trafficking. Yeah, here's what you should be observing, when you go to some of these places. And all you got to do is pick up the phone and call. You don't have to get involved in the investigation. You pick up the phone and call. So just like a lot of people don't know exactly what their U.S. attorney and U.S. attorney's office does, I think there's certain areas and nuances of the law that we could educate the public on, and they probably could help us out with a lot of the stuff going on out here. And I think that's one. Human trafficking is one.
Absolutely.
So, and of course we do a lot of child pornography cases as well. Those never slow down. That's another area where we have to kind of, we have good collaboration with the state too. They do a lot of them. We do a lot of them. And we're always talking. So that, and unfortunately, that's what I mean by keeping our community safe as well. A lot of times we think about the shootings and whatnot, but it's to protect the vulnerable, the children, the elderly, the disabled. Those are the things that the federal government should be focused on. That's what, as long as I'm U.S. attorney for however long that is, that's what we're gonna do here in Shreveport, here in Alexandria, Monroe, Louisiana, Lake Charles, Natchitoches, Bunkie, everywhere. That's what we're gonna do.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so my final formal question for you is, what gives you hope that we're headed in the right direction in terms of reducing drug trafficking, violent crimes, and other issues plaguing this community?
Well, I think what gives me hope, number one, I've been U.S. attorney since December 2021, as you stated earlier, and I think there has been an uptick. I don't think we've gotten there yet, to where I'd like to see us. But I think there's been an uptick in the interest that the community has, the interest that the media and journalists have. When I first got confirmed, nobody used to call me, and James Stewart, Wayne Smith, those guys. I'm by no means jealous of them, but it seemed as if very few people knew and or interested in what we were doing. And my executive assistant a few weeks ago said, hey, I think people are, given the press conferences you've had, given some of the press releases we've done, I think even, we have more media showing up now than they used to our pressers. Stuff like this. You graciously invited me. We get anonymous calls. After that press conference we had on the CARES Act cases, we got called. People were calling in saying, "Hey, I've seen this. These people got this money. You need to look into it." And then we get calls about violent crime. We just didn't used to get that kind of traffic coming through. And also just at our office, we've gotten more prosecutors now than we've ever had. Since I've been confirmed. So there's just more eyes on these cases. There's more people working with our federal agents, and more people working with our locals, such as Shreveport PD. We got our staff.
How does that? Let me just interrupt one second. How does that? How do you add bodies, or how do you add prosecutors, or who makes that decision to expand your team?
Well, the Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys in D.C. has to give me more people, and I was fortunate enough to serve on A.G. Garland's advisory committee. My time is winding up, and
I think you were one of maybe 11 attorneys.
Right,
13.
13.
One of 13 U.S. attorneys.
And so I was able to serve on that, and I've been going up to Washington over the last year, and I think just building relationships up there and tell them hey, don't forget about the little guys. When you tell people you're a U.S. attorney from Louisiana, they start asking you questions about New Orleans. But we're in what we call a medium-sized district, and a lot of times the tone and tenor with small, medium-sized district U.S. attorneys, they forget about us. And so I just try to go up every time I go up, try to meet somebody different, try to have a cup of coffee with somebody that otherwise wouldn't have a cup of coffee with me. But and they're gracious, and just try to. We got through the budget that the Senate approved for FY 2023. A lot of the U.S. attorneys' offices across the country got allocated new positions for violent crime, domestic terrorism, human trafficking, stepping up our e-litigation efforts. There's just a myriad of stuff. And it was a competitive process, and my team helped me put together a package where we got some additional positions. And, we're filling those now. We've made some shifts with some resources that we had in the office to allocate people toward more prosecution. And, we're promoting people, and we've got, just good harmony at the office. Good mix of veterans, good mix of millennials in there, keeping things light, and it's a great place to work. The U.S. Attorney's Office here in Shreveport, and our Lafayette office as well. So I'm excited for the next year or so, and we'll just stay tuned. We'll see what happens.
Well, I so appreciate you and all
Absolutely.
the work you're doing.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else, I didn't touch on? I just tried to kind of give people, like you said, just try and better educate people
Right.
of what your role is, some of the work you're doing.
Right.
Is there anything else that you'd like to mention? We have all the time in the world, so don't feel rushed.
I think one thing we failed to touch on that we have not had this issue in our district, really in Louisiana as a whole, recently, mass shootings and critical incidents. And that's another area that we're going to make some progress in over the next few months. We're about to start what I call our road show, and we're going to go to all parts of our district, and we got these briefings with local law enforcement, with the colleges and universities in our district. I mean, we've got a lot of colleges and universities. We've got LSUS, we got Centenary, we got Louisiana Monroe, Louisiana Tech, Grambling, schools in Alexandria, Northwestern State, McNeese, all of these schools. And we're going to go to all of these areas. We've got them scheduled, and we're going to talk about, okay, guys, what happens if we have a mass shooting at LSU Eunice? What are some of the first steps that we're going to do? Who's going to take the lead? And because Jeffrey, I don't want, we've never done it before in this district, had this kind of collaboration when it comes to critical incidents, but I don't want it to be the first time we talked. That's what I've learned from some of my colleagues in other parts of the country that had these incidents. The U.S. attorney up in Buffalo, for example, when they had the shooting at the Tops grocery store, I was talking with her, and she said we had never really talked about, okay, what do we do if there's a shooting in a grocery store or in a church somewhere out in Cottonport, Louisiana? Does the Cottonport PD have the resources to take care of everything? Probably not. Or should we bring in the state police? Should we bring in the FBI? So we've got 4 meetings scheduled in October and November, where we're gonna bring together those law enforcement agencies. We're having school resource officers there as well from every parish, in case an incident takes place at a school. And when we have those meetings, I can't wait to see what the aftermath per se of that. I think it's going to lead to more communication, more collaboration, so we can push our associations with these law enforcement agencies and schools out there. So just in case something happens, God forbid, we're developing a critical incident response plan. Hopefully we never have to enact it. But if something happens, we'll have it there, and at least we'll have a starting point so we can respond appropriately and try to diffuse the situation. And if something happens, apprehend the subjects. So that's one thing coming. Me personally, I want to continue to try to enhance our office's relationship with the media. I want to try to educate the media and the public as of what we're doing at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Somebody told me after I got confirmed, Brandon, you guys sit over there in that ivory tower on Fannin Street, and nobody really knows what you guys are doing, what you're about. And the public may not need to know what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, because a lot of times we like to move covertly, but I think the public, the taxpayer, should have an understanding as to why we're there and what functions we serve in the community. So we're going to do a better job with that as well, engaging in the community. I think it starts with stuff like National Night Out is coming up in a few weeks. And we participated in that before, but we're looking at having town hall meetings on certain subjects in the near future, just to let the people know, look, we're human, and you can come shake the U.S. Attorney's hand. It's okay, So I think those are good things to look for in the upcoming months.
Well, I look forward to it. I appreciate you making the time today.
Absolutely.
I think people will learn a lot, and I really applaud and appreciate all the work you're doing.
Absolutely, and I encourage everyone to support our local YMCA. Come join, work out, and the great things are going on over there. I'm a member, so love going, love seeing everybody. You guys do a great job.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.
All right, thanks.